I think where the Sigma mocks helped was that you're able to click through each individual tab. And so it's really simulates something that's pretty close to the actual exam, which a lot of other test preparation sites are not able to do. And then there's also a greater variety in terms of the type of DI questions that I saw on e-GMAT's preparation site. So there was a variety of tables, like verbal type DI questions that had like paragraphs of information. And there was different types of charts that I don't think I would have seen on other test preparation sites. And I think the most important thing, honestly, on the exam day was my mentality, making sure that I felt confident and kept on looking forward and not thinking about the mistakes that I had made. It was like a 615 or something on my most recent Sigma mock. Yeah. So I was definitely in like a tough spot. And I just decided like on the day before the exam, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna look anymore. I'm done preparing what I know, and I'm gonna go take this exam.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another session with me. My name is Dhruv, and I'm one of the strategy experts and mentors at e-GMAT. Today, I'm thrilled to have with me Melissa, who recently scored a fantastic 685. She has had a good 60-point improvement in her GMAT journey, and she's here to share her entire journey with us in the most candid manner possible. The decisions that worked in her favor, the do's and the don'ts, so that all you GMAT aspirants can take some learnings out of her journey. Melissa, welcome to this session. Thank you so much for doing this. And how are you?
I'm good. Thanks so much for having me. I really appreciate the help so far.
Right. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate the time that you've taken off to do this and to share your journey with everyone out here. So, Melissa, let's begin from the very beginning, right? Your diagnostic mock score was a 625. So, data insights was clearly a challenge there, right? So, my question to you is when you saw that score of 625 on the diagnostic mock, what challenges did you realize were in front of you that you had to tackle and overcome?
I think certainly test fatigue was a part of it because at the point where I had always been taking DI as the last section. And so having the first two sections, either verbal or quant, in whichever order, first definitely made my brain a little bit tired by the time I got to DI. And I think the second part was unfamiliarity with the concept of multi-part questions. So for questions that I wasn't really familiar with, just testing one concept or just testing more than one concept in general, like analyzing both graph and looking at tables, I think was additionally difficult because not only was I fatigued from a test taking perspective, I had also experienced some difficulties applying multiple levels of question answering. And then in addition to that, as you all know, the DI section requires sometimes all of the responses to be correct in order for the question to be correct.
Correct. Right. So, what exactly did you do on the data insights front that really helped you to improve your score from the initial low DI score that you had?
So I think a strategy that I used for both DI and other sections was to skim the question and understand what I was answering and what parts of the graph that I would have to focus on, especially with the DI questions that have multiple tabs of information and there's maybe a paragraph or two or three of text. I think it helped me to figure out what am I looking for specifically and what do I need to respond to. And so gradually, as I was practicing that section, it was helpful for me to be able to hone in on what I'm looking for in terms of information. And that helped me answer questions more quickly and then also keep my time management under 2.5 minutes.
Right. Melissa, one of the most crucial mistake or rather challenge that people face with data insights is time management, right? So when you're solving those shorter quizzes, it is still okay, but when you're doing those sectional mocks and full length mocks, data insights kind of fix you with some really lengthy questions. So
Mhm.
how did you manage your time on the mocks, on the sectional mocks, and on the test day on data insights to make sure that you are answering all questions and also maintaining your accuracy.
Right. I think the concept of like dead weight loss is pretty strong because for me, initially, when I was preparing, I had the idea, okay, I've already spent more than my allotted 2.5 minutes for it. It's been 3 minutes, so I have to get this question now. And so I would spend 3, 4, 5 minutes on very difficult questions. And in the end, I think there was maybe a 50-50 chance I would get it right just because the question was so long and difficult and there were multiple parts or multiple choices that I had to answer. And so um, as I progressed in my test preparation and continued to do sectional mocks and then eventually got closer to the actual exam date, I sort of realized that I'm only hurting myself if I spend more time on these questions that are very, very difficult. Like either I am going to know the answer, or if after 3 or 4 minutes I still don't have it, I'm probably not going to get it right anyway. And so I ended up just making a mental note, like how much time am I spending on each individual question, and if I felt like it was taking a particularly long time, I decided I would just move on.
Right, right. Another challenge that students face is not really good quality questions on the web, and
Mhm.
and not so great exposure to variety of data insights questions available. Uh, how would you rate e-GMAT data insight questions and the course to help you get prepared for the data insights challenge?
I think I've also been part of TVP before, and I had taken official exam like the books materials. I think where the Sigma mocks helped was that you're able to click through each individual tab. And so it's really simulates something that's pretty close to the actual exam, which a lot of other test preparation sites are not able to do. And then there's also a greater variety in terms of the type of DI questions that I saw on each gmat's preparation site. So there was a variety of tables, like verbal type DI questions that have like paragraphs of information. There was different types of charts that I don't think I would have seen on other test preparation sites.
Understood. Understood. Let's discuss a bit about your verbal journey. You had a solid foundation there when you started. I see that you had scored a V84, I believe, right?
Mhm.
So when you're already starting at a decent ability, what were the challenges that you wanted to overcome when we speak about verbal?
Yeah, I think primarily it was the strategy of not picking a response before I had read through all of them because I when I first started out and even closer to the final exam and on actual test day, I have always finished the verbal section with extra time. Like I read like quickly, I'm able to sort of synthesize the information pretty well. But I have a really bad habit of just choosing an answer because I think that's the best answer. And so oftentimes that'll lead me to picking something like B over D, like just because I see B first and I think in my head, like I've already thought this is going to be the answer. So even if D is a valid response, I won't really go compare those two. And I think during the preparation process, I had to unlearn that part of the way that I respond to verbals because I realized that a lot of times when I had wrong answers, I would get to the point where I'd eliminated 3 responses, but I would prefer to choose an answer that was earlier on, i.e., like A or B over C, D, and E. And so that was a really bad habit that I had to overcome. And then two is also um, the pre-thinking methods and also learning to go through each individual response and think about like, is this actually answering the question? Is, for example, with the weaken or strengthen question, like, does this actually weaken or strengthen the argument? Going through and taking through each one of those separately without looking at the other options is also really important.
Right, right. Now that was about CR, and trust me, it's not easy to unlearn and then learn because when you're
Yeah.
already at a V84, you have some really strong instincts
Mhm.
to let go of them and learn a new process. I think a lot of uh, kudos to you for that because uh, people just look at the score, but it's what goes behind the score that actually is
Yeah.
known only to you and me because we both were in this journey together, right?
Mhm.
So congratulations to you on that. It's not an easy job. Let's speak about RC. What were some specific challenges that you were facing with RC? and what helped you overcome those?
I think similar problems. I would say like I faced the same issue with verbal where I was sure just jumping to conclusions, which really hurt RC specifically. I think going back and reevaluating which ones of the answer choices, and then in certain cases, like I think the bookmarking strategy really helped me there because even in the final exam and in a lot of my sectional mocks, if I had gotten to the point where I eliminated everything but two answers, if I knew that R3 is my weak spot and I know I'm not super confident on this answer, I would just bookmark it after I hit maybe 2 minutes of a single question and then come back to it later with a fresh set of eyes so I can reevaluate the argument and make sure that I'm answering correctly. And I already have read the passage, so I already know sort of what is going on with the passage. And then I think there's also a time management component, just because that after you've read the passage, making sure to keep on the correct cadence can help you later on for questions for that specific passage, but also to keep in the cadence of the other questions in the overall section.
Understood. Let's discuss a bit about your quant journey as well. Again, really solid foundation there. You were starting at a Q86. Uh, what exactly were you looking to improve on the quant front?
I think there were, since I had done preparation before starting in GMAT, I think some of my weak areas I had already sort of worked on. It was really the time management. I think that was the biggest problem for me on quant because I had this idea in my head that if I have spent a lot of time on this question, then I have to get it correct. I think even on the actual exam, obviously because GMAT is it's adaptive, knowing that you have a very hard question it isn't something that you should really be scared of. And I think for me, I like had to unlearn that because every time I saw a very hard question, I would panic and then spend a tons of time on that question. And then it would leave me with decreasing time, especially at the end of like maybe my 20th question, I would only have like a couple minutes left to solve more than questions that I would have allotted my 2.5 minutes to. I would have like
Right.
1 minute per question. Then I would start blindly guessing. And so a lot of I think my improvement in trauma is due to time management, but also honing on our specific topics that I really struggled with. So using the custom quiz function or going on GMAT Club or using other online resources just for those specific topics that I knew I would have trouble with. And then obviously leading up to the final day of the exam, it was just memorizing formulas and other things that I would do.
Right, right. Melissa, nowadays a lot of students who come back tell us that the quant difficulty level has really gone up. Did you find something like that?
I think relative to the official exams, yes. Like if the 1 through 6 exams that they have available, and I think the 3rd through 6th are for purchase, the level of difficulty was certainly higher. I don't think there's questions that are necessarily difficult to solve, especially if we get to a point where you're scoring over 70% on the medium difficulty and like maybe 50% on the advanced ones. I would say overall they're pretty similar to what you would see as like 700 to 750 level difficulty in GMAT.
Right, right. And as you mentioned that the difficulty level was relatively higher than what you saw on other resources, did scholaring and e-GMAT scholaring play a role in preparing you for those difficult kind of questions compared to the other websites that you're talking about?
I think so, yes, just because there's a lot more like you can be more targeted with your practice. And other resources that I use, I feel like did not fall into those specific topics, especially for quant as well.
Right, understood. And how was your mock journey? Because mock journey is a different journey altogether, right? Just because you've done everything else properly doesn't really mean that the mock journey is going to be a cakewalk, right?
Yeah.
What kind of scores were you scoring on the mock journey, and how did you keep yourself motivated and in the right mindset to go and take the test and succeed?
So I think um, one problem that I had while I was taking my mocks up until the last week is that my performance on the Sigma X mocks were significantly lower than what I had expected. So there were scores like low 600s, I think one of them I had maybe 500s range. And similar with the official exams up until the last week. Official exams, I was scoring maybe mid 500s, low 600s. Up until the very last week, I think the highest score that I've had ever scored was a low 700. And my median, I would say, was around 630, 640. So going into the exam, I was sort of in that mind space, although my Sigma X mocks were probably low 600s. I ended up scoring significantly above that median. And I think a lot of that was due to not panicking when I experienced more difficult questions going on to a later half of the exam. Because I think one thing that I suffered from when I was practicing with the Sigma mocks was that if I had gotten to a difficult part of the exam, I had this mental switch that was like, okay, time to give up. And so if I thought that way, I knew that if I already saw like a bunch of very difficult questions in a row and I knew I got all of them wrong, I would just put myself in a very bad mental state. And I think part of me being able to score as well as I did on the actual exam day was because I did not let that mentality take over me. I took my break at a strategic time. I ended up verbal with more than enough time to take a mental break and then go back to review my bookmark questions. Then I had my quant section, which after that I took my official time-minute break, then going back to DI. So I essentially had a little bit of a break between each of the sections, and I was able to take myself out of the, okay, this exam is getting harder and harder now that I'm getting to the final part of it.
Understood. And finally, when you saw that 685 pop up on the screen, what exactly was going on here?
It was very relieving. I think when you get to the point where you've taken so many mock exams, I think you start having a feeling like, did this test go well or did this test go poorly? And so by the time I had finished the back half of my DI, it was certainly more difficult than I think I had gotten expecting, but I knew that I had done relatively well. I knew that I didn't really bomb the exam, and so it was it was hugely relieving to see that and then be like, okay, this is confirming how I like my hunch about how the exam went. So it's very relieving. Yeah.
You're right. And this is your only GMAT attempt, if I'm not wrong?
Yes, that's right. It's my first official GMAT.
Fantastic. So 685 on the very first attempt and just done with it, right? Unlike a lot of other people who have to retake the exam. So I think you've done a great job, Melissa, right? And you were very diligent as well. You were consistent as well. So I think all of these good traits that you had during your journey have paid off finally. So congratulations to you. And I, along with e-GMAT, we wish you the best for the next steps, right? To just wind up this little debrief session, any final advice to the GMAT aspirants watching this video right now?
I think when it comes to preparing, I think it can be it's a very long process and it can be super demoralizing because it feels like you've put in a lot of time into it and sometimes the scores don't necessarily reflect that. But I think same as if you guys have taken the FAT or other official exams, a lot of it, even beyond like the content that you learn, is about the exam taking strategy. And if you're able to hone your exam taking strategy in addition to the concepts that you're reviewing and you're studying, that will ensure a good outcome for the exam. So it's beyond, and that includes your own mentality as well. So it's multiple different parts, I think, that can result in a good exam score. And I think the most important thing, honestly, on the exam day was my mentality, making sure that I felt confident and kept on looking forward and not thinking about the mistakes that I made before.
I completely agree. I think mentality does half the job for you. Half the battle is won when you're mentally really strong. And I'm sure you were, because I remember towards the end of your journey when we were talking over Zoom calls. Um, I don't remember you.
I think I had
reaching
gone on
out.
like a 615. It was like a 615 or something on my most recent Sigma mock. Yeah. So it was I was definitely in like a tough spot. And I just decided like on the day before the exam, I'm like, okay, I'm not gonna look anymore. I'm done preparing. What I know is what I know, and I'm gonna go take this exam.
Yeah. You never freaked out. You were always confident, you were always receptive. So I think that is something that played a huge role apart from your preparation. So again, congratulations, Melissa. Thank you so much for your time, and we wish you all the best.
Thank you so much.